So this debate really boils down to the argument of are two levels of impact versus their main point of offense on health. So really, when you decide this debate, you're going to have to figure out how to weigh it. So as the judge, you have to decide, how am I going to weigh the impacts of the debate? No one has made any points throughout the entire debate as saying what's more important, what's better, except for my affirmative speech and Mike's speech, which kind of explained it versus choice and explained it in the level of you have to prefer different values. So when you come to decide this debate, you want to see who solves the most problems and who has the most impact. So we're going to function on two levels of impact. First is moral and second is policy. So I'm going to address moral first and then I'm going to go into policy. So the First Amendment right is our moral argument. Our idea is that you have a universal right to freedom of association, and that's a moral argument that stands above all else. In other words, health does not function in this level of argumentation because our moral right, our ethical right to existence is based off of this. And since it's unambiguous and completely a universal abridgment, it's all or nothing. You have to support this before anything else. So when we get down to the brass tacks of the arguments, you're really going to see that our argument is that we have a fundamental unabridged First Amendment right. Their argument is that they have a right to health. But first you want to see that on the offensive side of things, that they're directly abridging our First Amendment right, which is that you have the right to freedom of association, and you're hurting it by not giving them the choice, and you're discriminating against smokers, which prevents that directly. Their argument against ours, which was offensive, is that you're hurting other people's rights. But in the point of information, they pointed out no specific constitutional right where it comes from, so they can't get any offense on the moralistic side of things. Also, you want to see that we defended their argumentation by saying that they have no right to be uncomfortable. Not be uncomfortable. If you just look at how this society functions, cell phones ring, your boss tells you things that you want to do, those are all places where you're uncomfortable and it might not be as much health, but there's no rights to have that. There's no constitutional place for that. So you see they have a less clear link to that. So if anything, you want to prefer ours because of the clarity of the link and the continual perversion of the story. They completely change where this is coming from. They can't give you a specific place. So that if you want to look at moral, but if you want to look at the policy-making side of things, you're going to see that you want to weigh on the affirmative policy-making sides on who affects the most people, who prevents the most harm, who saves the most money. And you can see that there's no clear abridgment for health of how many people it impacts. They don't tell us, oh, it's going to affect X number of people. They just say it could affect a certain amount of people in public areas. But our impacts for our three arguments are much larger. So first I'm going to go into the immigration and capital argument. In the immigration and capital argument, they argue the fact that immigration could cause a decrease in immigration could cause bad things to the Middle East, but they don't say any impact of what happens with Middle East people. So you can just negate that. So just take out all the facts of immigration because there's no impacts that anyone put up in the round. But the argument that you want to look at is the capital trade argument. Mike and I presented that in this argumentation, since there's not a free public area where people can smoke, it's going to affect different cultures that want to have capital trade with us, and because of that, it's going to cost us millions of dollars. There's not going to be money from Saudi Arabia that goes into Goldman Sachs because they don't agree with our cultural arguments. If we don't agree with sensitive cultural issues where people can gain virtual trust with us, then they're not going to be able to get these capital markets. And this is millions of dollars, and this affects every person in New York City, and every person in the United States. So we have a broader scope in our effect. And also, you want to see that they never argued against our capital argument, so we have a 100% probability of this coming true, because if there's no net negative effects of it, and there's nothing that they said it's not going to come true. We have 100% probability. So when you really come down to this debate, you want to see who has the best probability, but also the best magnitude. And we have the best magnitude because our capital is big. And also, if you look at the other economic factors, like it's going to hurt advertisement, it's going to prevent other sin industries from cooperating in the United States, it's going to hurt free trade. These are all big effects. So we have a bigger magnitude, but at the same time, we have a larger probability because they haven't argued against ours.